Hello, you fantastic people, and welcome back to Borderlands 3. Got a super exciting one for you guys today. It is my level 72 Alpha Flak Fadeaway crit build. This thing's an absolute monster at both bossing and mobbing situations in this game. It'll take them all on with a huge range of weapons with all the recent buffs, as well as the cartel and other events coming back as permanent events. This thing is so much fun to run through so many different aspects of the game. I'm going to start immediately showing some clips on screen so you guys can check it out, because there is so many different weapons I want to try and show off, and I still couldn't fit them all in this build or in these clips because there's just not the time or the space. But these are my favorite weapons that do the most damage and the most fun to use and look the coolest and all that good stuff. Just so you guys know, this is a fadeaway build. You can use rack attack just as easily if you want, just literally switch action skills. Maybe one or two skill points maybe moved, but that's pretty much it. It is also not DLC dependent. You will see a lot of DLC items in here, because if you have DLC, you just get more items to use. But if you only have base game, you can just as easily use this build. It doesn't use any purple tree skill points. It is literally perfect for base game players as well. I've got you guys sorted. I'll be covering all the weapons you guys are seeing on screen, plus recommending a few more that I couldn't fit in the clips, as well as going over the anointments you guys want to use, because a whole bunch of changes happened to all the anointments in the game as of Thursday's patch, changing up which ones are the best for particular weapons as well. Of course, going over the level 72 skill tree builds, because we got an extra 7 spicy points to spend, as well as the Mayhem modifiers. If you guys still rock Mayhem 10 or lower, this build is honestly great for leveling all the way through to end game. If you guys want to use Mayhem modifiers, I'll recommend the ones that I personally like using with this build, as well as the shields, artifacts, class mods, grenades you guys want. Going to cover all of that as well. But this build, if you guys haven't heard of it, it's like my third or fourth iteration of Alpha Flak at this point with different level caps. Easily my most popular, definitely my personal favorite, because it's the most all-round best fadeaway flak that I can put together. It is essentially for any player of the game that uses flak. If you just do playthroughs, if you just love doing endgame stuff, if you like doing takedowns, just the raid boss, the new cartel events, any of the events, anything in the game, mobbing or bossing, this build will do it very well with a huge range of weapons. Like literally any viable weapon in the game that works at whatever level you're playing at, it will work very well in this build, which is why I absolutely love running through all the takedowns and farming bosses and stuff with this build, because you can just switch up variety. You can use the really fun King's Call. I love the animation on that gun. That's my personal favorite. If you feel like one-shotting things with the new kick charger, perfect. If you love shotguns, I love shotguns. You can use any shotgun with this build. It's just perfect. And you don't need God roll gear. I literally have had 2 days since the level cap. Granted, I've played a lot in the last 2 days to try and get this video out for you guys, but literally 2 days, and I have already a fully stacked backpack for you guys to put in a PC save file, which, by the way, is linked in the description if you guys want that, or in our Discord. But it doesn't take crazy amounts of hours to get this gear. It doesn't have to be perfect parts. It doesn't have to be perfect class mods, perfect anything. They're good, what you're seeing on screen. My gear is good, I'm not gonna lie to you, but it's not unachievable for the regular player. That's the point of this build. But yeah, hopefully I've rambled long enough to get through most of the clips I had for this video. Now let's jump into the stuff you guys want, starting with the anointments. Huge changes happened to the anointments on Thursday. The main ones that I use for this build depend on what weapon. Primarily, I'd say probably 80 to 90% of the anointments I use are on action skill, and weapon damage is increased by 100%. For most weapons. That was already honestly the main anointment I was using, and there was no change to it, and there wasn't a good enough buff to any of the fadeaway ones for me to want to change the anointment. So most weapons, go for that one. Other great options are next to max elemental damage. If your particular weapon you're using does a huge amount of elemental damage, maybe use that instead. Consecutive hits did get a nerf. It no longer stacks to 200, it only stacks to 100, therefore making 100% ASE kind of the exact same thing, but you instantly get it after you finish your action skill, rather than having to stack it with something like a Monarch or a Light Show, something like that. Still works, but not as good as it used to be. The original anointment 200% action skill active did get nerfed down to 100% action skill active, so that one is pretty much now not going to be used. Instead, we have a new fadeaway flak specific one, which is while you're in fadeaway, you get 150% bonus damage. Now, I personally only use that for a few select weapons. For example, the King/Queen's Call, I only ever use in Gorillas in the Mist, because if you're not hitting criticals, you're not getting that cool effect, and you're losing a ton of damage, you're not putting bullets back in the mag, etc. But as you're probably seeing on the clips on screen, the King/Queen's Call is amazing in Gorillas in the Mist, so you want to put that 150% whilst in fadeaway anointment on that gun, as well as maybe a kick charger or a Monarch if you're looping that really quickly in, say, raid boss situations. Pretty much everything else, I'm going for action skill and 100% bonus weapon damage. That was a lot of numbers and percentages. Hopefully that made sense. With Anointment aside, let's get into the weapons. My particular favorites are the King's Coal / Queen's Coal. Comes from Tyrene, comes in all elemental types, and is absolutely incredible after its most recent buff. Fantastic for bossing situations, melts literally everyone, including the raid boss. It's that good. The Butcher is probably the best shotgun in the game now. It's totally balanced, makes lots of sense, huge damage, fire rate's incredible, never runs out of bullets. Makes sense. Recoil is manageable, pretty good, to be honest. There's literally no downside to this gun. Get yourself a Butcher. They're fantastic. The OPQ system is finally back out. This thing is incredible, has a huge damage variance. Try and get the best one you can. 35k times 2 is the best one I've seen. They're really, really good. The Kick Charger from Arms Race is an absolute menace. It will one-shot literally everything in the game, I think. Maybe not the raid boss, but pretty much everyone else. This gun's incredible. Get yourselves one of those as well. The Prompt Critical or the Uncountable Tarot, I couldn't fit them all in here, but get yourselves some of those. They come from DLC 3, all elemental types, and are great for mobbing situations. Not great for bossing, but for mobbing, it just blows up the entire room. It's incredible. The light shows, if you guys haven't heard about these, they're literally like the staple gun for any build. Crazy fire rate, crazy damage, decent mag size. It's just like, if you need one gun, the light show or the Monarch, that's like the 2 weapons to go to set off your build to get the rest. The rest being the replay or the multi-tap. 2 Atlas pistols are fantastic. I actually use these for the trials, trying to get them done in under 5 minutes. They're really good weapons to use. The Maggie, of course, just fantastic, legendary. There's nothing else to be said. It's just fantastic. I've got a couple more King / Queen's Coals in here just for the save file. Got the Hellshock. This thing is incredible, as well as the Beacon, as well as the Radical. 3 melee 1 pistols, which are pretty much the same with slightly different variations for base game and different DLCs. Get yourselves all of them. They're so much fun to use. The Trick Shot from Arms Race is incredible. You guys probably saw the clip at the start. The Crit SMG is another fantastically balanced, totally makes sense weapon. You can get it from tipping Moxie, and is a purple SMG that does more damage than every SMG that's a legendary in the game. Makes sense. The Torrent is fantastic. Arms Race, crazy fire rate. Try and get yourselves a huge mag size one. You can also get a ×2 variant if you guys want that one. Crit SMG in there as well. The Hyper Focus, not as crazy as it once was, but to be honest, you probably saw the clip at the start. It's still very quick. The Lucian's Coal finally got buffed recently and is back again like it was at the very start of the game's launch. Is pretty good at bossing situations, but fantastic for mobbing situations because it ricochets bullets to nearby enemies. And it's a Vladov, not a Jacobs. The Plasma Coil, fantastic SMG, huge amount of damage, only comes in radiation and shock though. The No Pew Pew recently came back as well from the Cartel event and is a great COV, one of the only COV weapons I use. Actually, in saying that, I just realized I didn't put the Tizzy in this backpack. Get yourselves a Tizzy, comes from Arms Race and is very strong. Huge mag size, fire rate is disgusting. It's also a great COV weapon. The Breath of Dying, you probably saw me one-shot the Kraken with this thing. The blobs that come out after you kill an enemy are way too strong. It's great. I love it. The Monarchs, again, the other staple. Try and get yourselves all of these elemental variants, which, by the way, for this week, only if you're seeing this from the launch of the video, you can get these from the Trial of Supremacy until this coming Thursday. So try and get yourselves those. Otherwise, Kilovolt is the place to get them. The Chaos Assault Rifle from Dahl, pinpoint accuracy, really good damage, is probably up there with my top 3 favorite ARs. Really fun. The Rowan's Coal, also fighting for that top 3 spot with the most recent buff with the Lucian's Coal. Both are really good. This one's probably a bit stronger than the Lucians in the bossing department, but is also really good at mobbing because it does the exact same thing with the ricochets. I also have a non-elemental Butcher in here. You can get them in all elements, including non-elemental. This one is essentially when there's multiple different kinds of enemies, I just hold down the trigger and everything downs in front of me. It's incredible. The Hellwalker, of course, is pretty much the goated shotgun with a slight exception of maybe the Butcher being currently very balanced. There's a bunch of other shotguns I wanted to put in here, but I can't fit them. For example, the Reflux, the Garcia. There's probably others like the Lob. There's heaps. I just couldn't fit them all in here. Rocket launchers. We have the Yellow Cake is back. Fantastic for one-shotting things. The Kick Charges. We got a couple extra in here. Sandhawk sniper rifles are tasty. They're really good for bossing. They run out of ammo for mobbing though. The Lyuda, same thing for bossing, but mobbing. They have so many bullets in the mag now. There is no negative to this gun. Again, makes lots of sense. The Skull Masher is my particular favorite Jacob sniper rifle and is really good for one-shotting things because you can get multiple pellets in it, bullets back in the mag, you never have to reload, crazy fire rate, recoil's practically gone now, just all great things. The Boogeyman from Arms Race puts bullets back in the mag, and you pretty much never run out of ammo, to be honest, particularly with flak, and is pretty damn strong as well. Has a cool little effect with the skull that is good for mobbing situations. Now, for the gear, we have so many shield options, so much stuff to go through. We have the Revolter on the left-hand side. This is my new favorite shield in the entire game. It is absolutely fantastic for literally everything, particularly bossing. It's not fantastic for survivability in mobbing situations, but honestly, I don't care. I play flak. So if you want one shield, go for the Revolter. It does come from DLC 6 though. If you don't have that, plenty of other options, don't stress. The Old God is from DLC 2, is great for both mobbing and bossing situations and gives you extra elemental damage. This stopgap is incredible. For some reason, we managed to get a double turtle capacity on the first day. Chuck on an action skill start, activate any effects that trigger on shield break or fill, and you'll get that 5-second immunity barrier around you every time you go into fadeaway or proc rack attack if you want to spam that. Plus, you have 102,000 capacity. It's incredible. The Snowshoe is really, really fun, particularly if you're using rack attack spam. That Cryo Nova is amazing, freezes all enemies near you, and they won't shoot at you, which is very helpful. The Beskar Shield, Arms Race DLC, reflects 100% of projectiles while shielded, and 50% damage reduction while shielded. Do I need to say more? The Infernal Wish, I don't actually have a level 72 one, but I want to throw it in here just to say, go out and get yourselves a level 72 one. It adds an extra projectile per shot, which is fantastic for single projectile weapons, particularly for one-shotting things. If you want to one-shot things with the kick charger, and you have a slightly weaker build and need a little bit of extra help, the Infernal Wish will make sure that happens every time. For other situations with multi-pellet weapons, like the Revolter is just flat out better, to be honest. The final shield being the Super Soldier. This is practically the DLC 6 version of the stopgap without having to wait for that 5 seconds to finish to proc the next 5 seconds of immunity. You can spam that thing on repeat. It is absolutely incredible. Slightly less capacity, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure it's just because I have double turtle on this and not on this one. So let me know what the biggest super soldier you guys have, but those are the shield options. There are plenty other ones. I just can't fit them in my backpack, to be honest. Grenades are super simple. All you want is cloning or mitosis hunter seekers. Mitosis are hard to find, but cloning will do the job just fine. Get yourselves any elemental type you can find and chuck on every action skill and elemental type you can get, so that way you can chop and change which elemental you're doing after your action skill end for the enemy you are versing. Now, as for class mods, Bounty Hunters are the primary one that I go for all fadeaway and rack attack builds. They're just fantastic. And just to show how strong this build is and the fact that you don't need crazy god roll items, I haven't farmed any level 72, and in fact, I don't even have any level 65 class mods in my inventory right now. They're all level 53, 57, or level 60. So if you guys farm yourselves good level 72 ones, you want to pass me in damage, because this is a huge source of your damage. Essentially, if you're lacking in damage, go for the skill points you see on the top of the Bounty Hunter, as well as the passives you can see at the bottom. We have really good ones. They're just older ones. The left-hand side, great for pistols. Right-hand side, SMGs. That's assault rifles. We have a fantastic one, which I've kept from level 57 because it is fantastic for Jacob's shotguns. The one on the right is fantastic for Sandhawks. Crazy amounts of damage out of those passives. And the only stalker I have is only for mobbing situations and for the Butcher, because shotgun damage plus Hyperion damage is just really good. Plus 3 points in big game is very nice for your damage in this build. Now, as for artifacts, the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge is the primary one I go for. It's a crazy amount of damage, and getting that mag size / fire rate bonus at the bottom is very helpful. Don't stress if you don't have DLC 2 though. I know a lot of people don't. If you only have base game, Snowdrift Victory Rush is the best one I would recommend. Again, try and go for some mag size on the passive at the bottom. I unfortunately got 20 plus luck at the bottom as well, which I don't want, but just try and get the best passives you can. Now, you guys might be asking, where the heck are the company men? Company men are also really good. I just don't have the backpack space to have one of every brand type company men in this backpack right now, but that is another great suggestion. If you have DLC 6, they're also really good. And if you get absolutely perfect rolls on company men, they're actually kind of better than the Pearl, if I'm going to be honest, with a lot of different weapons, if not all of them. Oh, and just before we move on, Cut Purse Launchpad is like a staple with all builds. If you ever run out of ammo in Guardian Takedown or even Melee 1 Takedown, chuck on a cut burst launchpad, jump in the air, slam on the ground, and the Guardian perk, Groundbreaker, I think it is, yeah, will put ammo back in the magazine of the weapon you're holding. It's free ammo wherever you are without needing an ammo dump. As for Mayhem modifiers, as you can tell, I rock Mayhem 11 because I cannot be bothered re-rolling my Mayhem modifiers every time I do a build. Plus, they just kind of annoy me if I'm going to be honest. But if you guys rock Mayhem 10, the ones I would recommend would be Big Kick Energy. That one gives you extra damage with a slightly more kick and accuracy spread, but honestly, it's kind of worth it. Medium and hard modifiers would be a Drone Ranger and Healy Avenger because they're very neutral. And honestly, by the time Flak takes on an enemy, they don't have time to heal. It's just one shot and they're out of the game. The very hard modifier, I would recommend two different ones. If you're using Fadeaway and are accurate for hitting crit shots, go for Holy Crit because it actually just buffs your critical hit damage, which is great for Flak, particularly Fadeaway Flak. If not, try Buddy System. You just take out those little drone things and that's literally it. You can take on enemies as usual. No immunity to elemental damage or pulls on the ground that'll one-shot you. They're very annoying, but those Mayhem modifiers are pretty simple. And finally, the level 72 Fadeaway Flak skill tree loadout. Starting with Fadeaway, of course, we change between Not My Circus and Gorillas in the Mist depending on what weapons we're using. The only time I switch the Gorillas in the Mist is for King/Queen's Calls, as well as the Monarch if I'm doing a raid bosses. That's pretty much it. Every other time I'm using Not My Circus combined with Unblinking Eye. Both of those are fantastic. For skill points spent, 5 points in Furious Attack. Shooting things gives you extra damage. Overclocked, 5 points for increased fire rate and extra fire rate again after reloading. 3 points in Turn Tail and Run, health and damage reduction when you guys are moving. Gun damage and fire rate while you're standing still. So if you try and take on bosses, stand still, you get more damage. 1 point in Lick the Wounds. Essentially, whenever you're down to Mayhem Water or a barrel or something stupid because you're Flak and you're a glass cannon, Pet will pick you up so you don't have to respawn and deal with that. 3 points in Eager to Impress essentially gets your action skill cooldown rate for taking out enemies, which is great because you want to be looping Fadeaway as quickly as possible with this build. That keeps your damage up, keeps your kill skills up, and your power inside. Back to Hidden Machine though, that is an extra 30% damage whenever Flak is not seen by enemies, aka he's in Fadeaway, or Pet is taunting the nearby enemies, which happens all the time because we're primarily using Not My Circus, which is really, really good for your damage. 3 points in Fast and the Furious. Gun damage, pet damage, and movement speed. I mean, you know, what more do you want? And then, of course, the capstone, the power inside. When you go into your action skill, aka Fadeaway, you get an extra 25% damage or 50% damage if you're at full health at the time of going into Fadeaway, which is really, really nice. Moving over, Purple Tree, we're not currently using any points in here because I wanted to keep this a non-DLC build. But if you have Purple Tree builds on the way. There are some very good ones coming out of this most recent patch. Blue Tree, we got 3 points in Persistent Hunter, increases your gun damage and your action skill duration, which is nice, particularly if you're using Gorillas in the Mist. 2 points into Ferocity, increases your pet damage. Essentially, we just use that to get down the tree. 5 points in Frenzy, it's essentially a capstone at the second level of Blue Tree, which is great. Increases your damage for whenever Pet shoots an enemy, and also counts when Pet gets shot because you put 1 point in He Bites, and it reflects bullets back at enemies that have shot at Pet, which is great. Over to Red Tree, 3 points in Leave No Trace. You have a chance to add ammo back into the magazine whenever you hit a critical hit, which is all the time with Flak. 5 points in Interplanetary Stalker. It is a kill skill. Essentially, you get increased damage whenever you take out an enemy, which is very, very often. 5 points in Hunter's Eye. We have an extra 2 points from our class mod, but this increases your critical hit damage, your armor damage, and your damage reduction against those particular enemies, and counts against all bosses in the game whenever using a Bounty Hunter class mod, which is very, very nice. 3 points in Head Count essentially gets your action skill cooldown rate for hitting critical hits, which again, happens all the time. 5 points in Two Fang. Now this is a very optional one and is where I put some of the new level 72 points. I am using a ton of single pellet weapons again because a whole bunch of them have been buffed recently, as you probably saw in the backpack. But if you are exclusively or primarily like 80+% using multi-pellet weapons, Two Fang is really, really wasted because you're only adding 1 extra pellet and it's not really worth it in something like a Butcher or a Monarch or something like that. So if you're using single pellet weapons like me, rock 5 points in 2-Fang. If not, I'll show you where else to spend them in a second. 3 points in most dangerous game. It is one of Flak's best kill skills. You also have 3 extra points from your class mod if you have a really good roll. 3 points in big game. It essentially boosts all of Flak's hunt skills, which include most dangerous game, interplanetary stalker, furious attack, and frenzy, which are huge sources of Flak's damage, which are just being buffed by big game. 1 point in Galactic Shadow increases your critical hit damage by 15%, which is nice and very cheap. 4 points in Grim Harvest increases your gun damage by 12%, action skill damage by 40%, and pet damage by 28%. This one honestly isn't a very efficient skill, so if you want to move this to something like quality of life changing, for example reload speed, I wouldn't blame you because it's not a huge amount. It's honestly, I just picked this over quality of life or health because I like damage. And then 1 point in Megavore, it is the capstone. 20% of the time, wherever you hit an enemy, you'll get a critical hit anyway, which is fantastic for head count, for leave no trace, for hitting critical hits with your hunter seekers that you're throwing about, gets ammo back in the mag, gets your action skill back, doing damage. It's all around an amazing ability. Now, as for pet choice, we have the Gunslinger Jabber for any bossing situation, including and primarily the Wotan or the Guardian takedown fights, because every other boss gets curb stomped because they're merely pets, whereas this one actually stays back and shoots, which another great ability of this guy, because he has a fast fire rate weapon. He will stack frenzy incredibly quickly. For example, as soon as you jump into the Graveward fight, by the time you start shooting him, pet has already stacked frenzy to 10 stacks, giving you the most amount of damage. In mobbing situations, you're still welcome to use the Jabber if you want, but other great options are the Great Horn Skag, because it gives you an extra 15% damage there as a passive, or the Spider Ant Scorcher for 10% extra elemental damage and a little bit of health regen as well. Now, if you guys, like I said, are using multi-pellet weapons, 2-Fang is kind of wasted. So a few different options. You can put more points in Grim Harvest. You can put some points in Ambush Predator if you are using mostly ranged shots. Or if you have Purple Tree, I was thinking of putting some points into ammo regen. It's way cheaper rather than Second Intention if you do have Purple Tree. Otherwise, you can use the new points to get down to Barbaric Yelp. I was considering that for a little bit of extra damage via the Great Horn Skag, but it's not a huge amount. You're not going to have it up all the time, so I opted to go for 2-Fang as well as the Grim Harvest points. Up to you guys, chop and change it a little bit. It's not, a set build. Use it to however you guys like to play. This is how I load out my Alpha Flak at level 72. And that is my level 72 Alpha Flak Fadeaway Correct build. If you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to smash subscribe and that like button down below. Both are totally free. Help me out a bunch, and I very much do appreciate it. Other than that, we have a Twitch we stream to every night, hanging out with the community, farming a bunch of weapons, getting a bunch of weapons for chat via extraction events, and just hanging out, having a good time. If you want to check out that, link down below. We also got a Discord. You can find it in the same place. Other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. See you guys in the next video and a live stream. Till then, adios.